Welcome to 3D Movie Cinema, the only show that's 3 dimensions away from 28 weeks later being called 29 Days Later. I'm your host, 3D Jake, and today we're looking at 28 Weeks Later, released in 2007. 28 Weeks Later is directed by Juan Carlos Fresnedella and is written by Rowan Joffrey, Juan Carlos Fernandez, E.L. Levin, Jesse Almar, and of course, Alex Garland. The movie stars Robert Carley, Rose Byrne, Jeremy Renner, Harold Porter, Catherine McCormick, Macintosh Muggleton, Amun Poots, and Idris Elba. The movie is essentially a continuation of sorts to 28 Days Later. Like, it has an all-new cast, and essentially it takes place weeks later after the original movie, but it focuses on a brand new group of people. Like, Cillian Murphy and Naomi Harris are not in this movie at all. And instead, the movie focuses on NATO trying to clean up Britain and basically brings the survivors back to this land, and then a new outbreak starts. And this time it spreads even further. I saw this movie, I remember like after I saw this movie, like I think it was after it had hit at theaters. It was probably around like DVD or something. And I think, I'm pretty sure I saw it, and yeah, I forget. I'm pretty sure I said it where I saw it last time, but I remember just seeing it on DVD and I watched it, and I just remember really liking this movie. And I always thought like the opening was a banger. I remember like the first time really I owned the movie, I think, was when I got the DVDs in 2013 of 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later. I really, really like the opening of the second movie where it just like you see him on the hill running, and it turns out that whole opening sequence is directed by Danny Boyle. Apparently, he was only on set for a couple days and he shot that opening sequence. And then, of course, then he left and did Sunshine. And so that's why he did not return to direct this movie, him and Alex Garland. Apparently, Alex Garland said they wrote a script for this movie. But unfortunately, like the studio kind of like the idea of it was kind of about, I guess, the U.S. Army trying to weaponize the rage virus. And so I guess that was the idea. And then, of course, Alex Garland said they took a small idea and then they made a whole story around it. Like they said, they said, oh, they don't want to do that part. They just want to make it about NATO trying to clean up and a new outbreak cause. And then, of course, it just like, they rewrote their entire script where Alex Garland was kind of a little bit bitter about it because, he later in an interview said, like, that's not our movie. Danny Boyle said he does enjoy the movie and he thinks the director who directed it is really well done. Alex Garland is more bitter towards it by saying, yeah, it's not my movie. It's not our movie. It's like, which, that was because they're working on Sunshine. And so that's why Cillian Murphy and no one returned. And so that's when they hired this other director who wrote. And then, of course, the studio really wanted to make a sequel because the first one did really well for itself. And they were like, we want to cash in on this. And, of course, they really were excited to make this movie. And apparently, and this has a lot of these actors are up and coming actors. Like I think at the time, the biggest actor in the movie was Robert Carville, who plays like the dad in the movie. He was, I believe it's not Robert Davi, it's Robbie Carville. I could be wrong. I'm sorry if I get his name wrong. He plays the dad in the movie. He literally, because he was in Danny Boyle. I believe he was in the Island movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, and he was also, I believe, in Transpotting. And he worked with Danny Boyle soon. I think Danny Boyle was the one that cast him in this movie because he wanted him to be in the movie. And the only thing was, I think the only idea was if Danny Boyle directed a sequence in the movie. I think that's the only reason why Danny Boyle directed the opening sequence. Because, I don't even think that originally the opening, that was supposed to be the opening of the movie. I think Alex Garland and them, they just said they wanted it because, from what I understand, I think the reason that opening was not meant to be, I think the opening was meant to just start off with the just like how the movie starts. But I think what happened was, and again, I could be wrong about this part. I think what had happened was test screenings. There was no zombies for for at least 30 minutes in the movie. You're like, there's no infected, there's no dead, nothing. So I think they went back and they after the movie wrapped, went back and added this opening sequence, and everything, and brought the principal cast back and shot this opening sequence, and a lot of people do say that is the best sequence of the movie. And yeah, apparently Danny Boyle did shoot that opening sequence and I really enjoy that. I really enjoy the fact that he got to at least direct one sequence in this movie and a lot of it time. And it also, we get John Murphy's score in this movie where he plays the 28 Weeks Later, which a lot of people use that theme over and over again. And it's a new rendition of In a Heartbeat. and he plays that score, and that is usually the theme that a lot of people play nowadays. I mean, you heard a rendition of it in Kick-Ass. You hear like it like in trailers and different things. And so I really enjoy this. In fact, you even hear a little bit of a rendition of it in the James Gunn's The Suicide Squad even. And so I really enjoy that. That we can still get to have that beautiful score. And I know I will always associate it with these movies. And I really hope that we get to hear that score one more time. That In a Heartbeat. I know it's a different composer, but I hope we get to hear In a Heartbeat at least in the movie somewhere in 28 years later. I do think that I really do enjoy though. It is a story about how the U.S. military is trying to clean it up and everything, and then of course you have like all these kids that sneak around and everything, and then of course they they bring in an infected person, and the movie is essentially about that. It's essentially about they bring in an infected person. They clean up everything with the aftermath, but a new virus rises up and everything, and takes out everybody. And I really enjoy the fact is that the movie focuses on kids this time around rather than focusing on a guy who wakes up in a coma. I really focused on like these kids, but then it turns out there is some stuff I call bullshit on. Like for instance, I'm like, okay, like these kids are able to sneak off. I'm like, they'll be military. They would never have even been able to escape. They have barricades and blockades everywhere. They were just able to sneak around. And I understand they crawled over the bridge and everything, but it's like you would think that there would be people patrolling that area. Like there is no way like they would be able to like they would never even got past the bridge, but I understand, logic, in this movie. I mean, also like when they lock all the people in the like me and my niece watched it. My niece never seen the movies for the first time, so me and her watched it. And she was telling me the whole time, why wouldn't they just put people in their hotel rooms? Why wouldn't they just like to lock it down in the hotel rooms? That way it'd be easier to find who's infected, who's not. Why would you just put everybody in like a subway system or whatever, or like a parking lot? Why would you even do that? That's so stupid, because like what if one's infected then you're just killing the whole herd. And I was like, well, maybe they're because they'd have to go door to door and it'd be easier. They could just tell where. But I'm like, which yeah, it is kind of weird, it is kind of weird and everything, yeah. And also, like, how it is like, the movie does feel somewhat times like a video game where it's like, okay, this outbreak happens and they go from A to B. They just gotta go to an extraction. It feels like an extraction movie. Not like the movie Extraction with Chris Hemsworth, but just like an extraction, like, oh, you gotta get to a vantage point before it's too late, kind of like Resident Evil Apocalypse. I felt much more like I was watching Resident Evil Apocalypse, but in a good way, or Aliens versus Predator. Requiem. So it's like, okay, you like how you got to get to a hospital. We got to get out of this city before it blows up, or and it's like, that's kind of the idea here, or and I think that's really what I had an issue with. It's like I hate movies where you got to get to an extraction. Like it's like, oh, and then also like at one point the helicopter dude shows up with Jeremy Renner, and he's like, I can't take him, and then all of a sudden some guy's, get me out of here, and it's like you should probably tell this guy why she's important. Instead, he's like, you want to go for a ride? And he's like, which he's getting blood all over his chopper, which I'm like, we've established in this lore of the rage virus, why isn't blood? You should be like freaking out in the helicopter going, and everything. And I'm like, that to me is like, because you got blood everywhere and your doors are not closed. They're open and the blood's everywhere. I mean, I'm just saying, it made no sense. Also, when they were bombing the city, they would have won. The U.S. NATO would have won, okay? They would have won. Because there's no way, like they ever say, oh, the infected survive, they just hide. And I understand they're not zombies, but still, they're not that smart, okay? And I think in the new movie, they kind of established they're getting smarter. But still, I'm just saying that kind of, I felt like I call BS on a little bit, especially, when they're able to break out, and then of course they all just die out again at the end when they get gassed. Which, I will say, some of the scenes I really enjoyed in the movie, though. I do like when the dad kisses the wife, and then he freaks the hell out, and then he just goes rage virus. And I love when they're sniping down the people, and you're hearing the In a Heartbeat play, when they're sniping everyone down. And he says, go kill all targets, and then they start firebombing the city. I love that whole sequence. And it turns out that whole sequence was shot during the day, because they said they couldn't, and then they just digitally altered it to night, because they said they couldn't get the shot right, so they had to digitally alter it. And also, I really enjoyed the Ferris wheel scene, even though I hate the helicopter part, but I like how they're sneaking around, like, and they see the hills, they're ducked in the grass. And also, I really liked the scene where, like, you know, they're in the car and like the zombies are gassed, and you see this one zombie and they get gassed, and like, and then Jeremy Renner has to push the car and he gets caught on fire. I thought that was such a cool sequence. You know, it looks so good. I did not like the whole night visual tunnel. That's when I usually kind of lose interest in the movie, when they're in this tunnel and Rose Byrne's using a night vision goggle and then he gets killed. And I'm like, why not shoot? When you saw it, you should have shot him. Like, you're like, ah, but you're in the military. I know you're a medic, but still, you're in the military. You should have been able. I mean, I'm sure you have training for this. You know, and I just think that's kind of stupid. And also, what's kind of stupid is where he says, "Oh, God, ditch these people and meet me at the stadium." And I'm just thinking, why not just circle fucking back? Okay, I mean, it makes no sense. That made no sense. And then at the end, the guy just accepts them instead of saying, "No, fuck that, I'm leaving. Bye." You know, I mean, it just made no sense. And also, it does. I do like that there are immune people to this virus and non-immune people, and I like how the little boy is non-immune because it passes through. And I kind of like that he can spread it, but he can't get it. And I thought that was a good idea that I wish they would lean more to in this movie. But I just sometimes feels like the illogical stuff in this movie is what takes me out of it. Like, I like the friendship between Jeremy Renner and Harold Berto's character. I like the fact Rose Byrne here has a love connection, kind of like he likes her. I like that idea, and I also like the Idris Elba in this movie because I'm just a big Idris Elba fan. You know, even though he has a small role in the movie, he's not like huge. But I thought his role as like the head of NATO, I thought that was pretty cool. I just wish we would have. I wish we would have got more of these characters. I mean, it feels like they're introducing great characters, but then by the time you get to really enjoy their character development, it feels like they kill them off too quickly. Like Jeremy Renner, oh, you like him? He's like he's the unwilling hero, and then he gets killed. Oh, Rose Byrne, you like her? She's a medic and everything. Oh, she gets killed. You know, and it's like, oh, you got this character, and it's like, oh, he gets killed. And it's like, I really wish we would have got more, character development, and I wish it wasn't such a like, oh, you have to hurry up and like. It feels like by the time you get to after the outbreak, they're just rushing through the movie, and I feel like that's one issue I had with this movie compared to 28 Days Later, where it lets you breathe through the movie. I do like this movie though. It's still a solid movie. It's not as good as 28 Days Later, but it's still a solid, fun ride. If I had to give this movie a grade, I'm gonna give it a B+. Thank you so much.
Sharpton for president, y'all. I'm outie.
Jesse Jackson for VP.